All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Is It Legit podcast. Today, we're talking about food, additives, and dyes, and how it's affecting our health. So, Peter, I know you're also a parent. We have a lot of parents around us. We're constantly fighting to have the best nutrition, to really, feed our kids well. What do you know about this topic, and what do you deal with when you go to the store?
I mean, you know, I've always been interested in food and nutrition. I think mainly because I came from a place where I was very loose with my eating. I ate very unhealthy, and then I was essentially sick, and I didn't realize I was sick until I got healthy, and I realized, oh wow, this is what normal feels like. Oh, I'm not like incapable of remembering things and having trouble studying and staying focused. It was just I was sick, is what happened. I could tell you about kind of like my academic, like what happened in my development there. But yeah, I mean, we all know that the food in America is really bad, and it's been more recently, I guess, exposed. And the statistics around people who are metabolically healthy, um, I've heard numbers of over 93% are metabolically not optimal. 93%. That means 7% of Americans are actually metabolically optimal. That's really sad. Even people who think they're healthy, they're eating well, et cetera, et cetera, they're actually still metabolically not optimal. And it's hard to be metabolically optimal when you're living in a country where food is just not regulated the way it should be. And so I think this is a very fun and interesting topic, and we'll definitely dive into it. Yeah.
Yeah, so, we have I think it's the highest or one of the highest per person healthcare costs in the world. And at the same time, we have one of the worst health outcomes, like you mentioned, in the world, right? So why is that happening? Unfortunately, we've had a lot of, in the US, had a lot of industries and a lot of companies lobbying to put additives to make foods last longer, right? Which is a legitimate concern. You don't want your food to expire in a day like it used to. But at the same time, they're also engineering things like hyper-palatability. Like there are literally people hired by food companies to try and make foods as super tasty and even overcome your instinct to not eat or stop eating, right? There's engineers who actually look into this. So you go to the store, you're a parent, you're a whoever, right? You're going to the store, and as soon as you enter the store, you have colors, you have specials, you have prices that kind of all come at you, right? It's an attack on your senses. Um, you go to parties, and it's full of chips and all these things that have different color in them that are chemical, right? So, for example, we had a recent ban on dyes. Uh, so, common dyes that we use in the US are red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, blue 1. And it sounds really harmless, but the idea is that these colors, they don't come from natural sources. What we used to do is we used to have color come from, like
Carrots or something, right?
I've read that the Roman emperor, when they had their purple cape, it was actually crushed beetles. And if you crush a bunch of beetles up, a certain kind of beetle, apparently it's like purple, and they use it to dye their clothes. Or they could have used, beet juice to make a food red. But that's all kind of expensive, right? So all of these food dyes are made out of petroleum, the same thing that you put in your gas tank. So imagine drinking petroleum, right? So Peter, what have you seen for key health concerns? Like, how does dye affect people, affect kids, and maybe share some of your experience with that?
Yeah, it's So I actually looked up what are the neurological symptoms of when you take some of these things, and it's interesting because I've actually experienced every one of these. I was diagnosed with some of these things. So let's talk about it: hyperactivity, impulsivity, attention problems, learning, and irritability changes. Listen, I was diagnosed with ADHD, attention deficit hyper disorder, and they wanted me to go on Ritalin, which is kind of, because you mentioned we have a serious health crisis. If you talk to any hospital, you all know this is why we have an insurance crisis. This is why we have a health crisis. Hospitals are being overwhelmed because so many people are sick and having problems. People have diabetes, they're cutting their legs off, but there's not enough doctors to do all the treatments. But we're so sick, right? But that's the way they treat us. They try to, of course, our drug problem. Everyone knows of that, right? It's like we have so many. That's our solution is to just pump us with a bunch of drugs. So they try to give me Ritalin. Thank God I had an allergic reaction. I literally think it was God where I had an allergic reaction to Ritalin, and I couldn't take it. And so which has its own things. I mean Ritalin, it's essentially like a low dose speed, right? Um, so thankfully I wasn't on that, and I remember I had such trouble in school. I would eat, I was a kid who I used to put so much sugar. I was actually just telling the story yesterday, talking about sugar. I used to put so much sugar in my food. Like, Frosted Flakes. So Frosted
Oh,
Flakes,
classic. Love it.
classic, so good, right? So Frosted Flakes, the reason why it's so good is because it has like 40 grams of sugar per serving. Okay. Like it is an insane amount of sugar within Frosted Flakes. If you actually do Frosted, like times it by the amount of servings in the box, I mean, it's like hundreds of grams of sugar, which is pretty much pure sugar, along with some of the other additives and, preservatives and et cetera, right? What I used to do is I actually put so much sugar on top of my Frosted Flakes that it used to like be pudding.
You put
Because
sugar on top of your Frosted Flakes?
I thought it was
Oh
cool.
my God.
I thought it was cool. But think about it. Like, remember back in the day, like I was just talking about this with someone where we used to have pixie sticks. Not the
Oh
small
my,
ones, which are basically just sugar and dyes. But if you
oh my God.
the remember the long pixie sticks in the
Dude. Yeah,
plastic
it was like,
container,
yeah, it was like huge. And it was a thing. Yeah, I remember. Oh my God. I haven't thought about that. Yeah.
pure sugar.
Right.
It's just we're literally just ingesting sugar. Now we know it works. I mean, sugar is exposed. We know how destructive sugar can do to the endocrine system, to the insulin, right? To your, causing diabetes, which people may not think diabetes is a huge issue. It's a huge issue. It destroys your blood vessels. It destroys a lot of things within the body. Um, as you very well know. So just to make this kind of clear the point, hyperactivity, impulsivity, and attention problems. I had those when I was young. I could not focus for the life of me in school. Like it was so hard. I was constantly tired. Anytime the teacher would have a lecture, I would fall asleep. I used to like nod off pretty much every day at school, and I never understood why until I got into college. I started eating super healthy. I started jogging an insane amount. I started jogging every day and working out almost every single day. I cleared my mind, and all of a sudden, I got 4.0s in school. Well, I got a 3.9, but like almost a 4.0 in school. I used to teach. I I used to be that kid who used to teach other kids on like certain subjects, and I was never that kid. I was always a kid who like tried to cheat, to make it through school. So that's how much of a big difference, at least for me, it made.
So are you still a cheater?
Yes, I don't go to school, but I still cheat.
I
Anyway,
mean, so it's like if you've ever wondered, so why is this important, right? how does this affect my life or your life? Well, if you've ever wondered why your life is not heading in the right trajectory, or you feel less than you should, or you feel more bad than you should, etc., it's actually a lot of it, or maybe even all of it, is your diet. And that, so let's just start with a fact, right? How many additives are allowed in the US food market? It's 10,000 additives that are allowed. Now, granted, some of those could be vitamins, right? Some of those could be some other things that maybe it's fiber, but a lot of these are, so we'll kind of break it down. So we talked about how food dyes are literally petroleum products, like the stuff you put in your gas tank or your engine oil. And they affect your attention span, your mood, right? Your patience with your loved ones or your spouse or your kid or your mom. Tiredness after a long day. I mean, these are all things that have been studied. And the FDA finally banned Red No. 3 and I think other chemicals. And food manufacturers have until 2027 in January to remove it. So unfortunately, it's still there. Like my kid was just chewing. So my older kid has baseball, right? He's in Little League. All of his friends are in the dugout. They're cheering. And then all of a sudden I see him like chewing on this. It's called Big League Chew for those of you who have tried it.
Wow, I remember that, dude, from way back in the day.
And I'm like, what is Alex chewing on? Because it was like, and that's like a classic baseball thing, right? You do sunflower seeds or gum, And I looked at the back of the Big League Chew, and it's obviously just, sugar and red this and purple, it's purple, so it has red and blue in it at the same time. And it's like they're friends, it's like a normal social thing now. So now I have to be the bad guy and be like, okay, guys, let's just, So there's clear evidence, enough evidence for the government to actually, make it illegal. So that just kind of gives validation, right? Another thing is what's called the GRAS loophole, which is called generally recognized as safe. So this will be really fun. So did you know that the FDA doesn't actually test all of the things that it labels as safe? It says companies can self-certify ingredients as safe without FDA approval, without independent review, without public disclosure in many cases. Because if they follow a certain guideline on what is generally recognized, this is not a made-up term. This is like an actual thing you can Google. If it's generally recognized as safe, Peter can come out with a candy that's supposed to, extend your life and health span and make you into a good mood, and it's not. It doesn't even have to be tested. You could put.
That's so insane.
You could put mercury in this thing, right? And say, well, I didn't know that. I mean, for those of us who don't know, mercury will kill you if you eat it or touch it. I mean, it's like, so that's okay. That's another problem. And then the last thing I'll end on for this section is, again, going back to the ultra processed engineering. So there are scientists engineering your foods for what they call the bliss point optimization. So how do you get the right amount of salt? How do you get the right amount of sugar? And remember, there's different kinds of sugar too, right? There's fruit sugar, and then there's processed sugar, and then there's high fructose corn syrup. It's completely different. And it's actually designed to override the feeling in your stomach that goes up to your brain that says, hey, man, you're full. I think that's it. And
that's crazy.
They measure the dopamine that you release in your brain as you're eating these things, literally like drugs. Like the I think the Ritalin you talked about, or Adderall, right? I mean, kids are getting these prescriptions now. I'll give you one thing that's kind of funny that kind of maybe encapsulates this. So in Korea, there's a big food culture. We're both Korean, there's a big food culture, and there's this idea or how to like when you go to a buffet, so they're like, okay, how do we eat the most amount of food when you get to a buffet, right? And basically there's this concept in Korea called tanjan tanjan. It's like sweet, salty, sweet, salty. So they're literally kind of jokingly talking about how to shove the most food in your system. And it's literally by switching from sweet to salty, from sweet to salty. But these foods actually do it all together at the same time. That's why it's hard to not eat a whole bag of Cheetos. I love Cheetos too. Anyway, so that's kind of the tip of the iceberg here.
You know what's interesting is that I had some girls from Korea stay with us for a little bit, and they always talk about how they want to eat American Cheetos, American Coke, or American et cetera, Doritos, et cetera, et cetera. And they're like, and we're like, well, don't you guys have Coke out there? Don't you guys have? But they're like, no, it's Korean Coke. It doesn't taste as good. Well, it's because Korea has, I mean, we all know Korea has extreme health standards, and they definitely do different things there. And a lot of these, dyes are actually banned in many other countries in Europe and et cetera. But they particularly want our snacks because our snacks and our drinks taste so much better. And this stuff is obviously like really, really bad for you. It's so funny. You mentioned just this like addictiveness, right? So I had a Dorito, and everybody kind of knows like a Dorito is so good. Like you have that. We just had like a ranch Dorito recently, right? And it's just you bite into it, and it's just like the crunchiness, the flavors. It's like you don't even know. I don't even know how you can replicate that flavor, but it is so darn good. You definitely want to go for another chip. And everyone knows when you have some of these chips or when you have that Cheetos, everyone knows that like you always go for another one. And then because I have a friend who he like eats, he has problems with chips because he eats like a whole bag or two in one sitting. And it's like, how do you get yourself to, because you're not supposed to eat that many chips. What's the serving size on that, right? It's like, we're supposed to have like a little bit, right? But of course, no one follows that. But there's a reason why that happens. It's because they chemically engineer, and it's horrible for you, but it's like they chemically engineer these foods to make you so addicted, like literally addicted, so you can grab another one. And of course, like you keep eating more and then you get sicker. Hence the 7%, are metabolically healthy. 93% are metabolically unhealthy. I just want to mention real quick, as long as we're on this topic of what are some of the things that we are taking, right? I want to call out some of the foods that actually have some of these dyes or these preservatives. Gatorade, Powerade. We always thought that it's like a health drink, right? It's like, oh man, you see those sports athletes, right? And they have Gatorade, and you're like, yeah, Gatorade. But actually, it's filled with red dye 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, and blue 1, right? People, I mean, if anyone does have like cereal, like Fruity Loops, Fruity Pebbles, Cheetos, I'm sorry to say, Cheetos are horrible for you. Jello, Kraft Green Goddess, some salad dressings are horrible for you. Of course, like Skittles and et cetera, et cetera. But there's a lot of things. Like if you actually look, there's so many times where I'm like, oh, this has got to be like okay for you. It's healthy, and that's the other thing. That's one of the other things we can expose is sometimes they label things like natural flavors, low fat, right, zero trans fat, and then they even like mess with the serving sizes where like it masks the true intake, right? So it makes it seem healthy, but then I'm always reading ingredients because I actually know. I had a friend who's a nutritionist, and so she kind of taught me a lot about some of these ingredients. And then you're just like blown away. Oh my gosh, this has red dye 40. this. I was taking what do you call it? Mucinex, right? The popular. So when you're sick, you take Mucinex or you take Tylenol or some people take NyQuil. Dude, have you seen the ingredients in Mucinex and NyQuil? Full of dyes.
Oh, really? Wow.
Full of dyes and has high. I don't know about high fructose corn syrup, but it's full of dyes and full of sugar. And that's why it tastes really sweet, because they're trying to mask, and they were trying to make the, the color look kind of cool to drink. But none of those things are natural. So, yeah.
Well, that's depressing. I like how so I'll double click on that. So, it's really interesting you mentioned I know you guys are very generous with your time. You lend your space out to these kids that come and stay with you, and you're like a mentor to them. And that's kind of where you see like this microcosm of how they think, what they I've heard that too. What's funny is my cousin, so I used to smoke cigarettes back in the day. I used to smoke a lot because I grew up watching all of my my dad and my uncles and my grandpa smoke. So I thought it was a good thing, right? I smoked a lot. I quit. But then when I went to Korea, my cousin's like, hey, can you bring me some American Marlboro Reds? For those of you who know, Marlboros are, the American cigarette, right? Now they have like warnings with like a skull and bones on them where you're going to die.
Oh, dude, those warnings.
That's a huge thing that I think was a positive. But anyway, so my cousin's like, yeah, bring me some, I'm like, why? Well, it turns out even to the quote unquote unhealthy things in Asia, they have different ways of packaging the same Marlboro Red. So for example, the nicotine content will be higher on an American Marlboro Red. Or a lot of the cigarettes you buy from just regular stores have, like in Korea or in Japan, where I've purchased cigarettes. It's not a good example, but I'm just, being honest. They have like charcoal or bamboo filters in them to make it more healthy, right? So like, and another rabbit hole is if you Google, so there's this picture that comes up in my mind of an American Fanta, the orangey drink, Fanta, right? Remember that commercial? Fanta.
Don't you want a Fanta? Yeah, I remember.
There's an American Fanta picture, and then there's a European Fanta picture, and it looks so different. It looks so different. Like, I think in Europe, the Fanta might have orange, which is crazy. Or like they'll do tricks, or like Fruity Loops, right? They'll hold up, and this is like in court. They're like regulators talking about this. And you look at the American Fruit Loops, man, it's like super colorful, and kids are, colors are actually mood enhancers, and it draws. So you can actually paint a room actually to reduce depression. And this is like this is what they do in hospitals in certain areas. But these colors are so engaging to these kids. They're like, oh, I love tricks. I love Fruity Loops. But then you look at the European version, and they're probably using real or natural dyes. Like maybe it's beets for coloring or spirulina for green, right? And the colors are just totally different. So there is just, and we'll explain at the end why this actually happens, right? Because I'm sure people are like, well, why are we getting screwed here, right? But in terms of like the labeling, there's a lot of manipulation in how companies are allowed to label. There's a lot of politics behind what is allowed and what is not allowed. And even gut health too. I think we should touch on gut health. So
right,
there are a lot of preservatives in foods. Obviously, there are different things that make it not spoil as quickly. Like for example, I would buy certain foods from like a natural food store versus like a Safeway or QFC, and you literally see them wither away, in a quicker amount of time if it's a natural food versus not. So, and there's all these like, I also remember a picture of somebody putting like a McDonald's meal from 10 years ago and it's still not like decomposing or whatever it is. I mean, there's all these things that are just all around us that are signaling to us, eat me, take me. And we are, in some ways, really powerless to all that unless we remove the environment or change the environment or have some sort of awareness. So when you go to the store, you know, like my kid, my older kid, he reads labels now. So I'm like, is this good, Alex? And he's like, well, let me read the label. He's like, oh no, there. I told him if the label is long like this, it's not a good sign. Like, why would there be this in print that's this big? Why would there be a list that big? Right? So go after shorter labels, know what you're getting, know that some labels are actually allowed to be, so like natural flavors, you talked about natural flavors. Well, what does that mean? Natural flavors can actually include dozens of chemical compounds because it's legally allowed and companies want to make money. And if it's allowed, people will do it. People will take advantage of incentives. That's just who we are, right? So anyway, it's just some things to be aware of and to be wary of for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking at Fanta and just some of the ingredients. It has high fructose corn syrup, which I don't know if you guys know it. I mean, we're not supposed to, human beings are not supposed to eat and consume high fructose corn syrup. It's a sweetener that overloads the liver, triggers fat storage, right? And
Yeah.
that's why we're seeing so much diabetes, in America. And then, I looked up, Mountain Dew. Do you remember Mountain Dew and how big Mountain Dew was back in the day? Um, I would drink mountains of Mountain Dew. I'm gonna tell you right now. I used to go to this local 7-Eleven, and I used to get the big gulps and literally fill the whole thing. I'm talking like this big, okay, worth of Mountain Dew, and I used to drink it. I didn't even know this until now. Did you know Mountain Dew actually has caffeine?
Yeah, it does.
Holy cow! I didn't realize that in one serving of Mountain Dew, it has 55 milligrams of caffeine.
Yeah. So that's just to jump in. That's how they make foods palatable and addictive. Is that Starbucks? Look, man, Starbucks is all sugar and caffeine together.
Oh
That's
my
it.
gosh. Yeah.
So it's like and it's addictive basically from the beginning. So that's it's terrible.
It's crazy because they get this high, right? And that's why people love Starbucks. When Starbucks is not good for you, man. Like you should not be going to Starbucks. Like if anything, go get a tea. But even the teas, because it's put in hot a container that's filled with microplastics. Okay, it's like even that's not good for you. So I genuinely, I mean, I know girls are gonna hate this, but it's not good for you. You're ingesting. If it does make you feel good, and I know it's like a pretty store and all that, and you have a pretty cup, but the reality is that there's a reason why it makes you feel good. It's because it's pumped with sugar and it's pumped with caffeine, and you're wondering why you're so tired all the time. Well, that's what's happening. You're pumped with things that your body was not meant to take, right? And you're wondering why it's like, and Starbucks, it's green. It feels healthy, but it's not, right? Mountain Dew was also green, if you remember. And it was very bad for you. It had yellow dye, yellow 5 dye. It had, that high fructose corn syrup and et cetera, et cetera. Here's the issue. I think this is where, we should kind of conclude here because the question is like, what is going on? Like, why are Americans continuing to live an unhealthy lifestyle, even though now we're exposed, man. Like you can go on social media and it's all out there. Like this, what we're saying right now is not new, right? Here's my theory on why this is happening. First of all, unfortunately, foods. Okay, so think about it. Foods with preservatives, they can pump so many more out there. It has a much longer shelf life, right? And so they can have a more profitable business, right? If you don't have some of these preservatives, if you are going healthy, organic, you're not using the dyes, right? You're et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you're an average person with an average income, like you're either middle income or lower income, right? And you have two choices. You have one choice that's literally half the price, because think about it. Healthy foods are extremely expensive. Our food budgets, like we try to eat healthy, our food budget can't stick to our what we budgeted for ourselves, because it's so much more expensive than the average food. So you have this normal food and you're on a budget, you're struggling financially, which is, most of the world right now, or most of America. What do you go for? Well, what's better for you, but the problem is that what's better for you doesn't taste as good. Your kids will eat the unhealthy food better. It's way cheaper as well, right? And then it's way more tastier, way more like enticing because of the way they make this type of food. So what are you going to go for? What are the companies that are going to be fed financially? What do we keep feeding? Well, it's the foods that are obviously unhealthy. And what we really should be doing is banning those foods. The problem is it's a financial thing. These guys are, the GRAS, right? They're the ones who are funding the research. That's total horse crap, by the way. And they're the ones staying in power and lobbying, so they can, continue having a company, because they just, people are buying their products. So I believe that's the reason why America is in such a death trap right now. Unless we could truly ban these companies, I just don't think psychologically the average person with that average income or lower income will choose the healthy choice. But the problem is that then you're going to continue to be unhealthy, right? You're going to continue to be constantly tired. Your kids are going to be constantly tired, right? This is just what happens when you're eating unhealthy. So this is kind of the big issue with America and why it's so broken right now. And, other countries like Korea, honestly, they do it a lot different. You see Koreans are working 2 to 3 jobs. I don't know if you know, like Koreans work 2 to 3 jobs. They're very healthy. As you can see, there's not a lot of obesity. And, yeah, we do have a drinking problem, but we are also a lot healthier. So it has to really happen from like a top down. So maybe you could talk about like what RFK is doing. How is he actually changing? Well, what has he actually done? Because I know he's trying to make an effort. A lot of people hate him, but what kind of efforts is he making in the food industry right now?
Yeah, I think so. The way I think of it, before I cover that, is you talked a lot about cost, and that's I mean, look, a head of lettuce from from a natural food store or whole food store is way more expensive than getting like a burger from McDonald's, which is crazy, and it's a meal in your hands. But I do believe that if you don't pay for it now, you're going to pay for it later. There is an overwhelming amount of obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease. There's even cancers, and cancers are something that I think about all the time, because I'm involved in organizations that have, that help kids with cancer. And it's super sad to think that even just eating differently may have prevented or lessened the effect of cancer in certain kids. I mean, just think about that. Literally the food. Have you guys been admitted to a hospital? Like, do you know what kind of food that they serve you? It is not leafy green vegetables and fruit smoothies. It is puddings. Not all hospitals, but an overwhelming. I mean, guys, look, for those of you who are in healthcare, prove me wrong. I mean, I've been there. I've had 2 kids that, not me, but me and my wife have been in hospitals. I've had multiple surgeries. We are just surrounded by these things. Now,
in a hospital.
Yeah, it's
in a
crazy.
hospital, dude. What the heck? Like, they are like they're the. I guess it keeps them in business, right? But it's like, what the heck, man?
Oh, we'll talk about that. Yeah, I mean, it's like, look, if you're not gonna pay for good food now and find a way, look, you don't have to make it complicated. Go get chicken, okay? Maybe you're not getting like grass-fed chicken from a farm, but get some sort of chicken, get some rice, get some beans, get some corn, get some avocados. Like, just try to make something happen, right? There's all these videos on YouTube of these bodybuilders saying, you know, how can I make your food cost lower? They do it for like $2 a meal. It might not be the fancy stuff you want, but you're gonna pay for it in hospital bills. I can promise you that. And it's getting worse every year. We have an epidemic of these things, right? RFK Jr., you know, as much as people can trump to some of the crazy things that Trump has done, part of his kind of redemption arc is hiring people like RFK Jr. into the to manage these things. And the RFK Jr. has made a lot of changes in the FDA. He's helped hire a different director for the FDA that is now doing things like reversing the food pyramid. Guys, look, when we grew up, we had this thing called the food pyramid. And on the bottom, where you're supposed to have as many of these as possible to less up top, you had basically carbs on the very bottom. You're supposed to have had 9 to 12 servings of carbs. And then it's, fruit, vegetables, and meats were up on top of that. Now they flipped that, and fat was on the very top. It was demonized. There's actually a study done back in the 50s or 60s that paid scientists tens of thousands of dollars to literally write articles demonizing fat so they could promote sugar. They could promote the agriculture industry. Monsanto, I mean, we can go on and on. But just to stay focused here, reversing the food pyramid so that fats, proteins, and vegetables are actually the bottom now, as they should have been. And yeah, I like a pasta too. I'm a rice person. I can't get away from rice, but it shouldn't be the base of the pyramid, right? It should be like a topping almost. He's also, exposed certain things about vaccines. I don't want to get too controversial here, but there's a lot of stuff that they're doing to really unmask some of these things. And to really touch on why this happens, right? I'll give you, you talked about how healthcare is maybe related to profit, and that's 100% true. I was a political science major in Hawaii, and in my last semester, I had to work or do an internship at the state legislature, right? So, governors and Congress people and all this stuff. I was kind of like just an assistant for my senator, and my Senator Ihara, at that time, he had this thing called a sunshine policy, where he was trying to shine light on all the corporations that were backdoor contributing money and incentives to all of these Congress people to try and get them to vote in their favor. Okay. So you might think, well, no, people are good, right? People should be against food dyes and this and that. Well, think about it. You're a senator. You're fighting for the people. You're getting paid $40,000 a year. Okay, $40,000 a year. And the next door senator, this is a true story, guys. Next door senator, you go into their office and there's like food baskets and flowers and all snacks, and it's like from the floor to the ceiling, because those senators were getting contributions, right? From ExxonMobil, from Nestle, from all of these companies that were trying to push their agenda to get them to vote on things. So this is unfortunately how it works in healthcare. An MRI machine or a CAT scan machine to scan people for unhealthy people, that's a business. We have a $1 trillion industry for healthcare, and unfortunately, if you're not incentivized, you can't be incentivized to destroy your source of income. And that's an unfortunate fact, but that's just the way it is. And the way we have our system set up is really backwards, and it's really prioritizing profit. And we are business owners too. Look, we love profit, we feed our families, but at what cost? And I think that's the way people have to understand this issue right now.
I mean, that's always been like how people get voted in, right? It's like at the end of the day, even Trump, even Biden, even Obama, like all these people, when you have corporations behind you, that's how you get voted in because they have the biggest campaign money, right? They're the ones who, the more money you have, the more campaigning, the more eyes you have, right? The more social media ads that you can do, et cetera, et cetera. It's like it's just all money driven. That's how you get voted in. The problem is that when you're buying into what they want, and what's funny is um oh gosh, what's his name? Andrew Yang
Yeah.
was well, he actually talked about this in the podcast where it's like, dude, he gets offers. Like he was getting offers, but Andrew Yang didn't really fall into a lot of the corporate, buyouts. But that stuff happens all the time where like a lot of senators, lawmakers, they are paid, they get paid, and that's how they're gonna win. And that's just how it is, man. Like I have a cousin right now who's he's trying to get a certain position
Yep.
in political. I won't get too much into it, but the thing is, it's like there are people against him who are probably definitely sleeping with the right people. Let's just say that, and that's why they're getting way more exposure. And you could try to self fund. You don't have all the money. You don't have the money in the world, to be able to self fund and be able to maybe Elon Musk, right? But it's like there's not enough money for you to get the amount of support that you need in order to win. And that's just it's a systematic problem in America. And I know they've done things like you're not allowed to get contributions. Like they try to pass laws about that where you can't get any special
Yep.
interests or
Gift laws.
contributions.
Yep.
Exactly. Which
So,
would be great, but they're not going to pass that.
well, and then there's like, what is a gift now? There we had that rule too. The every gift over $100 of value. This is like 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Jesus Christ. Sorry. Yeah, it was a long time ago. And they had a rule saying that if a gift was over $100 in value, you actually had to report it, like write it down and report it. Well, I mean, who did that, right? Our senator, oh my God, our office was like so bare bones because nobody liked this guy. Because like we found that the governor who was Linda Lingle back in that.
Wait, sorry, this is Hawaii?
This is Hawaii, yeah.
Okay.
So for those of you who've grown up there or know Hawaii politics, Linda Lingle was a governor. She was getting $1 million a year on the back door. $1 million 20 years ago. So it's like, okay, who's paying you? Who are you incentivized to help? I mean, it should be the people, but I mean, and that's the smallest scale, smallest number ever. And if you get to the presidential and the federal level, I mean, we're talking tens, hundreds of millions of dollars, right? Like there's a reason why the Clintons are worth like $400 million. Like why?
Oh, they have a foundation, John. we should probably donate.
So Peter, maybe just to give people some hope here, what are some things that you do? What are some tactics that people can use to kind of defend against this, whole system?
Well, I don't know if we could really change things policy wise. I don't know. I've kind of given up on that idea personally. We can only change what we do personally. And so we have a garden, right? It's like if you have an apartment or whatever, try to create a garden. Seeds are cheap, dirt is cheap, right? And try to grow your own food. So we do Korean barbecue sometimes. We use ingredients from our garden. That's really I know it's a lot of work, but it really is one of the best ways for you to stay somewhat healthy because ingredients are so expensive. And then, like you said, like it doesn't have to be organic, but just try to eat whole foods. Like try to eat real chicken, real beef. And of course, we can get into that whole things like they're full of preservatives as well, whatever. But it's just a start. Try to just eat real food for now. Eat eggs, right? Try to eat a
Yep.
bunch of eggs, cheap protein. I would go for beans. Beans are it's a real food, right? And it's cheap. I'm not talking about necessarily the ones in the cans. You can get real beans and like
Yep.
you can put them together.
Yep.
Koreans are very big on beans, right? Red beans particularly, black beans and whatnot. And so there's ways you can get real food. And it just and the thing is, and I just want to mention that it's not easy to change it. Trust me, I have been there. It is not easy to change from like all of this preservative, real good tasting fake food to real food. It's so funny because I have friends who like I give people I was telling them like I really like my kids snacks because my kids snacks are really safe and the ingredients are actually really safe. And I'm like, man, it tastes so good. But then when they try it, they're like, this is so nasty, right? But it's nasty to them because they're so used to eating like all of these fake foods. But for me, it's like because my taste buds have, in a sense, reset. For me, it actually tastes really good. I can actually taste, oh, this is actually sweet to me. Whereas to someone else, it's so bland. But it's because they eat so much sugar. So it baby steps. It does take time, but you could absolutely reset your palate, and you could actually absolutely change the trajectory. You just gotta like, man, just take those little steps. What about you? What's your last thoughts around this?
I actually like that social aspect of it that you mentioned. I'm just going to talk about myself and my struggles, which is that I'm a parent of 2 kids. And it is a constant struggle. It's every birthday party. And we have sports now, right? You're going to get into this too. Every time there's a game, this is every week almost, if you have enough sports going on, some parent signs up, as we should, to share in the responsibilities of making a snack bag. You should see the range of things that show up in the snack bag. You know how many times my kids have cried because I told them they can't have this Gatorade? You know how many times, dude, we still have, well, I throw them away, but and now my kids know it sucks, but they know that it's because it's for their health, right? And it is a constant struggle to receive all these signals that, maybe you seem as the weird person who doesn't eat the chips and dip at a party or whatever, right? Like I don't drink. So, I get that look when somebody offers me a drink at a party and I'm like, oh, I don't drink. And they're like, oh, okay. And it's not a good feeling, but I'm like, well, my body just doesn't work with that, right? So be aware of that too. And it's okay to feel a little bit different or weird, but know that that is the beginning of awareness. And we have so many hacks, guys. I mean, there's so many hacks we could talk about, but really just try to eat whole foods. I don't believe in subtraction to change something. I believe in addition. So instead of taking away Doritos, you can still eat them, but make sure you have whole foods first. Eat a bunch of salad. And if you want to have that small bag, okay, sure. You've been eating it for 10 years, whatever. But you're going to be so full off that salad, you're going to be like, okay, I think I'm okay. Don't let the Cheetos be the first, thing you eat, right? If you want to lose weight, you want to, don't remove calories, add in walking, add in, exercise, add in 10 push-ups every day. So I hope this helps some people. And not just for children too, even our parents. Like our parents may not even know why they're, getting, they're losing memory, or it could be literally the diet and not just their age. So we're very passionate about this, at least I am. And I think, if somebody can get one thing out of this whole podcast, that would make me very happy. So that's it.
Yeah, it's totally worth it. Once you become healthy, you realize, oh, wow, how sick I was. And there's a reason why you're depressed, you're sad, and you have no energy and no motivation, guys. Like it's all in your foods. you're literally poisoning yourself every single day by eating this stuff. And so, yeah, just an encouragement. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate it. We obviously cover a variety of topics. We talk about, political stuff. We talk about financial stuff, and we definitely care about food. We are pretty healthy people. John has a sauna, and we do all types of things to optimize our health. And so, it's definitely a topic of interest, and we're going to do more stuff on, human optimization and, how to, and obviously some of the things that are wrong in America and how we can fight against it. So thank you guys for watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next video.